There's a very specific kind of person who remembers rewinding cassettes carefully and also remembers downloading their first MP3 on painfully slow internet, who knows what it felt like to disappear outside for hours, and also knows what it means to always stay reachable everywhere, not fully Gen X, not fully Millennial, but somewhere in between. And if you were born between 1976 and 85, you didn't just grow up like everyone else around you. You lived through two completely different versions of reality. And maybe no one ever explained this clearly to you, but that kind of timing quietly changes how your mind develops. Have you ever felt like you don't fully belong anywhere? Like you understand older people, but don't completely think like them? And you relate to younger people, but something still feels slightly off. Like you are always adjusting your tone, thoughts and reactions, depending on who is standing in front of you. Almost like you are translating your personality in real time. After a while, you stop noticing this constant adjustment happening, but deep down you still feel slightly out of place everywhere. That quiet feeling is not confusion or weakness inside you. It is the result of growing between two very different worlds. Because your childhood looked nothing like the world we live in, it was slower, more physical, and much more limited than today. You had to remember numbers. Instead of saving everything instantly, you had to show up, because there was no second chance. If someone said meet at 5, you simply went at 5, and if they didn't come, you just waited there silently. No updates, no messages, no way to check what happened. Just you, your thoughts, and the feeling of uncertainty. And that silence shaped something deep inside your personality. It taught you patience without forcing you to escape discomfort. It taught you presence without needing constant distraction around you. It taught you how to sit with emotions instead of avoiding them. And there was something else about that world you grew up in. Your mistakes didn't stay forever. They slowly faded with time. Embarrassing moments softened. Instead of being replayed again and again, your life was lived not permanently recorded or archived anywhere. Your brain adapted to that kind of environment very naturally. It learned how to let go and move forward without resistance. It learned that not everything needs to stay with you forever. And then suddenly, everything around you started to change. Not slowly, not gently, but fast enough to feel uncomfortable. Internet arrived, phones, changed communication, everything became immediate, suddenly. And the world you understood slowly stopped existing, completely replaced by something faster, louder, and always switched on. And you were standing exactly in the middle of this shift, not young enough to accept it as normal, instantly, not old enough to reject it completely, and walk away just young enough to absorb it while still remembering before. That's why your experience feels different from everyone else around you. Remember what it meant to be unreachable for hours. And you also know what it means to never disconnect you. Understand both silence and constant noise at once. And from the outside, that looks like strength or adaptability, like you can fit anywhere and handle anything easily. But there is a hidden cost to adapting this early, something most people never notice or talk about clearly. When your reality changes while your identity is forming, you stop fully trusting stability. Even when things feel safe, your brain quietly learns that nothing is ever permanent. And that lesson stays long after the moment passes. That's why you prepare more than most people around you. That's why you think ahead without even realizing it. That's why relaxing fully sometimes feels strangely uncomfortable, even when everything looks completely fine on the surface. Pause for a second and really notice this inside you that is not overthinking, that is stored experience speaking. Your body remembers what your mind has already moved past. And then life reinforced this pattern again and again. You entered adulthood, right when everything started collapsing again. First, the early 2000 crash. Then 2008 jobs disappeared, plans shifted, nothing felt completely stable anymore. And something inside you quietly adjusted. Once again, you became careful, not fearful. Just deeply aware of patterns you learned to read between the lines before acting. You prepared for things even when no one asked you. And people might call that anxiety, but it is not. It is experience built slowly through repeated real-life events. Now look at your role in everyday situations around you, in work, in family, in conversations between different generations. You are often the one who understands both sides. Clearly, you explain things, translate ideas, and reduce unnecessary conflict. You understand structure, but also understand speed and freedom. So naturally, you become the bridge between different mindsets, the one who keeps things working without drawing attention. And at first that feels like strength and responsibility. But there is something hidden inside that role you carry. When you adapt constantly, you also absorb everything around you. Pressure, expectations, tension, responsibility, all quietly stored inside. You fix things, smooth things out, hold everything together, and over time that effort becomes completely invisible, even to yourself. It just feels like normal behavior, but that quiet exhaustion you feel sometimes has a source. That heaviness, that tired feeling, without a clear reason, comes from carrying too much for too long silently without ever putting it down or acknowledging its weight. And here is something important you need to hear. You did not become this way because you were naturally strong. You became this way because you had no other choice. The world changed, and you adapted without stopping. Then it changed again, and you adapted again. Most people experience only one version of how life works. One pace, one system, one consistent type of reality, but you experience the transition between two completely different worlds. And that leaves something rare inside your way of thinking: awareness, resilience, flexibility, and the ability to adjust quickly. You know, things can fall apart without any warning, but you also know you can rebuild step by step because you have already done it more than once. So if you have ever felt slightly out of place, too old in one group, too different in another, pause for a moment and think about this carefully. There is nothing wrong with how your mind works. You are not behind, you are not lost or confused. You are part of a very small window in time. Xennials 1976 to 1985. A generation shaped by living through a major transition. And in a world that keeps changing faster every year, people like you already understand something important deeply: how to land on your feet when things shift without losing who you are in the process. And that quiet ability you carry without realizing its value is something most people still learning how to build.